9 years after he left office, former President Barack Obama opened the doors to his presidential center in his adopted hometown of Chicago. And as our Dylan Ancheta reports, he made sure to include his other hometown of Hawaii.
A star-studded lineup for the Obama Presidential Center opening in Chicago, Illinois. Among the names, Christina Aguilera, Bruce Springsteen, Jennifer Hudson, Stevie Wonder, and John Legend, just to name a few. But also in the lineup, a leader in the native Hawaiian community.
From the shores of his youth to the city that rose with him, Chicago, please help me welcome President Barack Obama.
Dr. Kaiwipunikauikawēkiu Punihei Lipe bestowed the honor of introducing President Obama.
Where I come from, to introduce someone means we have pilina, a connection. If this man walked into my home, my children would call him uncle, because we are both keikio ka'aina, children of Hawaii.
Dr. Lipe was a member of the Obama Foundation's inaugural cohort of the Asia-Pacific Leaders Program in 2019. She also is the current poʻo kula at Kamehameha Schools Kapālama. Her brief remarks likened Obama's legacy and impact to the a'ali'i plant, known for its versatility and tenacity, its strength being deeply rooted and its resiliency.
Our people say, "He a'ali'i ku makani maiau, ao he makani na na e kula'i." I am a wind-withstanding a'ali'i. No gale can topple me over.
With the center's opening, President Obama's alma mater here in Honolulu, Punihei School, is also expressing great pride in being a part of his legacy.
I think he reminds our students that where they come from really matters. That oftentimes, your commitment, your service to others and to a cause that's larger than yourself is what really makes life worthwhile.
More than 40 years ago, on a late summer afternoon in 1985, I arrived here in Chicago, entering the city through the very spot where this center now stands.
Obama's Presidential Center campus stretches over 19 acres in Chicago's historic Jackson Park with vibrant public spaces for all to enjoy. It will be open daily and is one of the 16 presidential libraries in existence. Dylan Ancheta, Hawaii News Now.